Welcome to the next webinar in our CCC, Cross-Cultural Communications, free webinar series. I am Marjorie Bancroft, thrilled to introduce Natalia Abarca in a moment, who is going to talk to you all about educational interpreting. We are Cross-Cultural Communications, as I said. I'm the director and founder. We are the only national training agency for community and medical interpreting, including educational interpreter training. And what we are delighted to welcome you to today is what would have been an incredibly special presentation, because it's all about interpreting in education in the country, the United States, that has now honestly become the world leader, in my opinion, for the sheer development and the speed and pace of professionalization of both translation and interpreting in schools, in education generally. Natalia Abarca actually has launched something so huge through her national conferences hosted by the Orange County Department of Education, that is a very committed, an actual interpreter herself in both education and medical interpreting. She became a founding member through the conference and the networking at this annual conference in Orange County, California, what was until this week called ITE, Interpreters and Translators in Education. And I am beyond thrilled to announce, and she'll talk about it too, that as of this week, that group is now a National Interpreters Association. It is called the American Association for Interpreters and Translators in Education. This is a world record-breaking event. We do not, to the best of my knowledge, and I try to keep a tab on this, have such an organization, a professional association of interpreters for all languages anywhere else in the world. And a staggering amount of work went into this. And as a founding, not only a founding member, but as someone who provided the host, the conference that made it possible, I want to personally thank you for that, Natalia. And before I hand this over to you so you can introduce yourself, I just want to mention a couple of things. You're welcome to use chat to say hi, unless you change the default setting, however, from you and the panelists to everyone. Only us in the back end will see it, so change your settings so everyone can see your chat. Please reserve Q&A for your questions for Natalia, because she'll speak for the first 45 minutes. Then I will come back to you and pose your questions. So Q&A is for questions to Natalia only. If you have questions for us or comments for everyone else, please use Q&A. Don't worry about your certificates. In 24 hours, you'll get a link to the recording. Yes, you will get the PowerPoint. Natalia has graciously agreed to share it, and a link to your certificate in 24 hours. But without further ado, I really want to hand the baton on to Natalia so that she can share her wealth of knowledge and expertise with you in this incredibly important area of interpreting. Thank you, Natalia. Look forward to watching along with everyone else.
So thank you so much, Marjorie, for that warm welcome. I'm really, really, truly honored to be here today. Something that Marjorie did not mention is that she was one of our first keynotes for our conference. So I met her at a conference in San Francisco years ago, and the rest is history. So right, Marjorie? So today,
yes,
the rest is history. So I'm going to share my screen. Is that okay to share right now, Marjorie?
Of course it is. Please, okay. Please go right ahead. Thank you.
I'm sharing my screen. Can everybody see?
That looks perfect.
Okay, so thank you so much. So today I'm going to talk about what interpreters need to know now about educational interpreting. And I'm going to share some challenges and opportunities working as an interpreter in the school system, especially during this past year of the pandemic. So a lot of us know that it's been a very, very interesting year. Let me see if I can move my, yes. Okay, so I'm going to share a little bit about me. I'm the lead of the Orange County Department of Education Multilingual Consortium, which is a professional network that was established in 2014 to support high quality interpretation and translation in Orange County schools. Luckily, it has been expanded so much that now we have a lot of people from all over the country attending our consortium. I am a licensed trainer for the community interpret training from cross-cultural communications, and I highly encourage everyone to take at least a 40-hour training if you are not a trained bilingual staff. I'm also the main contact for the Orange County Department of Education National Educational Conference for Interpersonal Translators working in our school systems. I have a bachelor's in biology and a master's in coastal management. That was part of my previous work in South America. I'm a founding member and a committee coordinator of the American Association for Interpreters and Translators in Education, the newly formed organization that Marjorie shared. And I'm also a member of the Interpreter Leadership Council for the American Translator Association. Something I would like to share with the group is that each school district has its own culture, systems in place, units, departments, and a structure, because we serve a diverse multicultural audience. And I want to provide you a little bit of the overview of the challenges and opportunities that we learned during the pandemic, and also some lessons that we learned. The learning objective for today is that attendees are going to understand their role and how to prepare effectively for an assignment. The reason why I share this is because many of us have multiple hats, and many of us are dual role employees. Also, how to transform a challenge into an opportunity to support successfully your interpreting team, and strategically share with your supervisors best practices in the field. Something that I'm very grateful about is that during the pandemic, we were like in zero mode. Everything changed and everything started being virtual, and we receive a lot of support from our vendors, our stakeholders, our peers, our school districts, and our colleagues. So this was a very, very important effort and an initiative that happened during the pandemic with us. And also how to identify key partners to build a professional network to support the work that we are doing. Like Marjorie shared, questions and answers will be answer properly, and please be ready to input in the chat. And I know that Andrew is going to be helping us with that piece. Is there something that we cannot answer today? Feel free to email me, and I'm more than happy to help you with that. So interpreting, what is interpreting and translating at a school? I know that we have more than 400 participants in this session, and I saw people from all over the United States, but also I saw people from all over the world. So bilingual staff working in the educational system in the United States wear multiple hats. And the reason to train staff is imperative. We do not are only interpreters or translators. We can be community liaisons, we can be parent advocates, we can be bilingual secretaries or bilingual aides. So I always call our attendees bilingual staff, because not all of us have the title or the role of interpreter or translator. Managing and coordinating and directing, leading and supervising a language services unit at a school, at a district, at a county office of education goes beyond the fact of being bilingual. So we have one role of interpretation, we have another role of translation, but when some of us are given the opportunity to lead the units, we have to be knowledgeable about all the programs and all the school practices to help our staff to be more resourceful and get more prepared for any encounter they may have. Also, we need to be flexible, we need to be strategic, and we need to learn how to make a challenge into an opportunity. So what are the encounters that we have in educational settings? And these are some of the encounters we have here in California, United States. Some of these encounters may be different depending on the city, on the state, and even on the country. But the general educational settings that we are asked to do interpretations are parent-teacher conferences, student study teams, 504 plans, our famous IEPs, SARBs, suspensions, expulsions, ELACs, DLACs, parent networks, conferences, board meetings, back to school nights, graduation ceremonies, press conferences, disciplinary hearings, community meetings, media recordings, you name it. And for a lot of us, you're going to say, this is a lot of acronyms. Yes, so welcome to the world of education. We have a lot of acronyms. In addition to be knowledgeable about the programs, we need to understand how the educational system works. We need to understand what elementary grades we have. We need to understand what middle school programs are offered. We need to understand what is summer school, what is an AP class, what is a GATE class. And a lot of these acronyms, again, may differ from state to state, but we need to understand also the grading system. Therefore, it's going to be easier for us to render any message or any task that has been given to us. So how are we going, so you have to know your role, right? So like I said before, what is your title? Am I a community liaison? Is in my job description that I need to interpret, translate, and also help the community and our parents? Am I only an interpreter? Am I only a translator? Do I need to do both? Interpreters speak, translators write, right? Do I need to provide service to the parents? Or do I just need to focus on my interpreting role? Am I a dual role employee? Just take 10 seconds and think about your role at this moment. What do you do? Are you only doing interpretation? Are you doing interpretation, translation? Are you a bilingual secretary? Are you a bilingual teacher? Do you need to share community resources? The reason why we have to start with this is because knowing our role and knowing our titles is going to define what we do. We have to respect our boundaries and our limitations. We need to follow our code of ethics. So if I am a bilingual employee and I'm going to be a community liaison, but I'm requested to do interpretation, I need to let my families know that the minute I'm going to be interpreting, I need to take out my community liaison hat and I need to start doing my interpretation. Right? So this is part of understanding the role that we do. When we do interpretations, we cannot share, we cannot add, we cannot omit anything. So the minute we have our clear roles, it's going to be easier to perform. But not only interpreters and translators are dual role employees. We also have principals that they may speak Spanish or they may speak Farsi or they may speak Italian. And some oftentimes they're asked also to perform as interpreters. We also have psychologists that sometimes they render their messages and their goals and their findings in the target language. So it is super hard to be very, very focused on the role of a psychologist or a counselor or a principal, and also being a bilingual employee, right? So that's why we need to be very, very clear on the roles that we have. So how to prepare for a virtual assignment. I know that a lot of these things you already know because we were doing these things in person, but some of the things that we have learned is that we need to prepare before, right? So the first thing that I need to learn when I'm going to be working on a virtual assignment is, who's going to be my contact person? Am I going to have a phone number? What type of interpretation I'm going to be providing? Is this going to be consecutive? Is this going to be simultaneous? Also, what type of virtual platform are we going to be using? Are we going to be using Zoom that has an interpreting feature embedded? And if we're going to be using Zoom, do we know how to activate the interpreting feature? Do we know how to let the audience know? Do we have a script ready? Is it only going to be in one language interpretation, or you're going to have multiple interpreters speaking at the same time, right? If you have Vietnamese, if you have Korean, do you have Spanish? Also, do I have headsets, right? Headsets are my new best friend, right? Do I have, is my microphone available? Is it good? Am I going to be seen? Do I have a camera on my screen? Do I have a laptop? Do I have a hotspot, right? Be careful about your surroundings. Today I came to the office because my Wi-Fi and my connectivity is better, right? So these are the things that you need to know before the session, right? What is the topic that we're going to be talking about? Do I need to research? Do I need to call somebody? Do I need to know the names of the presenters? Is this going to be an IP meeting, which is a special education meeting for an individual education plan for a student? Is it going to be a 1 hour meeting? Is it going to be a 3 hour meeting? Are we going to talk about certain medical terminology that is going to be super specific? Am I going to be interpreting for a parent-teacher conference? Am I going to be interpreting for an assembly member? Am I going to be interpreting something about the law? So we need to be resourceful. Am I going to be interpreting about budgets? Am I going to be interpreting at a board meeting? So the more we know before, the better we can get prepared. So this is before the meeting, right? So if it's going to be a 2-3 hour meeting, am I going to have a booth partner? Am I going to have somebody else that we can talk and that we can prepare ahead of time, right? Do I have my laptop charged? Do I have my iPad charged? Do I have my cell phone charged? All of these devices are going to be very important because with connectivity, there are things that we can control and there are things that we just cannot control, right? So also, what are you going to do the day of the assignment? The day of the assignment, you should log in before at least 30 minutes. If it is possible, do a dry run, test the audio, educate the attendees and the host on how the meeting is going to start, right? Have a professional introduction. You can tell the members of the meeting, I have a script ready. We can share the script on the chat. And the more information you share with participants of a meeting that is going to be using an interpreter, the easier it's going to be. So for example, if you have a script, how the interpreting feature is going to work, can you log in using a Chromebook? Can you log in with an iPhone? Right? So then what's going to happen the day of the meeting? Take care of your personal needs, have water, make sure that you have a good lighting, make sure that your background is good, right? Make sure that your dogs, your kids, or your gardeners are not going to be visible. Make sure that you have like a private space for you. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of how my new office looks, right? If you see, this is how my new office looks. I have a laptop, which you can see what says 357. And then I have my desktop with all my files there. And then I have a second monitor and I have a landline, right? And of course, I have my little sign that says a smile is understood in every language. Why this is my new setup? Because if my laptop doesn't work, I still have my desktop, right? Because maybe I need to research some terminology. What happens if the parent gets disconnected? What happens if my cell phone doesn't have a battery? Then I can use my landline. I know this is the ideal scenario and not everybody can have an office with double screens or with a monitor or with a laptop. So I also wanted to share some pictures of how our staff work. So if we see, we have here on the left side, we have Marcela, she's amazing. So she has one of our laptops and then also she brought her own computer. She has water, she has a notepad, she has a cell phone there. And because she had to share an office, we provide her with a conference room. So with this, what I wanted to share is that if you do not have that extra space, maybe it can be an empty classroom, maybe it can be an empty office. So if you see to the right, we have Stephanie. Stephanie, she shares a cubicle with somebody else. So she also has a notepad, she also has her laptop, and she also has her desktop where she makes her research. So we can accommodate and we should be flexible. So how is interpreting working in schools via remote platform? Consecutive mode is expected, but it takes twice as long. It is challenging to get the IEP team to speak in shorter terms. So what is an IEP? It's an individualized educational plan that is assigned to students that need help in the classroom. And this is very typical here in the United States. So it is challenging sometimes to have psychologists or specialists or audiologists to speak in shorter segments. So note-taking is our best friend. Sometimes interpreters do not have materials ahead of time. Sometimes the hosts do not share the screens. So when you have a host sharing the document in English, it is easier for the interpreter to follow along. Sometimes the meeting hosts are not familiar with interpreting features. Sometimes the parents and teachers are not familiar with interpreting features, right? Parents, sometimes they do not understand how to use virtual platforms. They don't understand how to use Zoom or WebEx, or sometimes they don't know how to use their cell phones. And also sometimes we have multiple devices connected at the same time in a household, so therefore the connectivity is low. What are possible solutions? Simultaneous allows meetings to last a little bit less. Have a telephone connection between the interpreter and the parents. Share a screen if it's not possible to provide copies. Remind speakers to slow down. Activate closed caption feature. Some virtual platforms offer this option. Try it out. If you have Zoom, try to practice with the closed caption feature. Provide an agenda with the names of the attendees and their titles. So that way it is easier for us as interpreters to remind. Also invite parents to a conference room with a computer, like the picture that I share with you about Marcela. So what are things that you can control and what are things that you cannot control? You can control introducing yourself, being very professional. You can control asking participants about their names. You can control asking participants to mute themselves. You can request repetitions. You can request breaks. You can request documents. You can control the noise in your environment. You have access to internet for glossaries and documents. But things you cannot control is when a presentation is confusing, when participants are having audio issues. You cannot control the internet speeds, and you cannot control the participant frustrations or emotions. So I know that we feel better when we can control things. And I know that things that we cannot control provoke us stress. But when we are clear that we cannot control what we cannot control, then our rendition is going to be easier. So I would like you to share on the chat, what were some challenges that you faced in your role interpreting in remote meetings now during the pandemic? What were some solutions that you implemented? Marjorie, Andrew, I don't know if you would like to share what the audience is sharing on the chat.
I'm not seeing anything yet.
What challenges did you face? We faced the first challenge was technology. We were not knowledgeable about technology. The second challenge that we shared was the connectivity. Third challenge, that we had so many people in the households that it was very difficult to focus.
We're hearing a lot now that technology is the main challenge, working from home and dealing with the kids, haha. Audio issues, speed, audio again, speakers, being able to write down all the information, the speed of the speaker, not being able to hear well, long statements, need to ask them to slow down. I'm sure you've heard these many times before.
Yes, and I just wanted to commend all of you because all of you guys were amazing and you did an amazing job with what we had. So please, we did great. We did amazing because yes, there were a lot of challenges. We had personal challenges, we had professional challenges, we had family challenges. So it was a lot going on. So what was the first challenges that we discovered, right? We were not prepared, like a lot of you already share. Technology, multiple devices, Wi-Fi, meetings were not covered. We were isolated. We were uncertain of what was going to happen. And one of the biggest challenges that we face at the Orange County Department of Education in California, United States, is that teachers started developing curriculum in various languages and videos to fulfill the need of students and parents that they did not speak English. So we were receiving the notifications, the letters, all the updates, and updating websites and updating curriculum. So it was a lot. So the first response that we had is schools provided Chromebooks, vendors provided support and coaching. I'm always grateful with vendors because people were super, super nice and accommodated. Interpreters, we were flexible and we went above and beyond. And administrators provided additional support, maybe yes, maybe no, whatever was available for them, right? So another thing that was the challenge was the use of technology, like a lot of you share, the use of interpreting features, guiding parents in how to use the virtual platforms, and also working large events when you had 100 or 500 attendees, right? And the host did not know how to set up the interpreting feature. So the pressure was super high. So what we did is we provided support to interpreters, teaching them a little bit about technology and how to support hosts of meetings, how to support administrators, how to support secretaries. So some of the tips that I would like to share with you, and maybe you already know this and you're already using them: get early, introduce yourself, request breaks, request repetitions, research glossaries, be flexible, allocate extra time for dry runs, learn about dubbing, closed captioning, transcripts. All of this were new learnings for us, and we know that there are companies that they can dedicate themselves to do that. But if I'm going to be interpreting and translating, and I'm going to be scheduling interpreters, and I'm going to be doing the dubbing and the closed captioning, believe me, you need more than 24 hours to accomplish. So administrators now are willing to listen and to hear us and to support us with all the needs that we have. Have a comfortable chair. I end up with knee pain because I did not have a comfortable chair. Lighting, background. Be comfortable with the virtual platform. Do dry runs, do mini labs, test it before. Share a script. And sometimes we need to sign in with two devices. One has the interpreter and another device has an attendee. You know why? Because when we are interpreting using the Zoom interpreting feature, we can adhere to our booth partner. But if we have a booth partner, he can listen. Are you okay? Am I choking? I need water. I need a break. So then your booth partner will log in immediately. Ask hosts of meetings to allocate a few seconds before starting. Spotlight the interpreter. And I already mentioned this, but always dress professionally and be attentive to switch when your booth partner is in need. Research, connect, and please take care of yourself. In the event you do not have a booth partner, let the audience know, let the organizer know that you may need a break if it is an informal meeting. But if you have to do simultaneous interpretation in a large event, you need to request a booth partner because it's too hard, it's too stressful, and it's too long. So I know our presentation is about interpretation and challenges, but I decided to share my challenges in translations. I'm assuming that a lot of the people in this audience, besides doing interpretation, you're also doing translations, right? So what happened? CAD tools, technologies. We had all the best softwares, but the software was not downloaded on my laptop. So when I went home, I realized that I could not do translations on my computer. Also have a multicultural team of translators because the same way you say some words from one country are not the same way you say the words in a different country from the same language. For example, I am from Ecuador. So the word choice that I might use, it might be different from Central America, and it might be different from Spain. Also, develop some guidelines if you have a media department, a communication department, because a lot of our request was to tape things and video record. So managers and programs were requesting the same documents to two different units. So if you work together in collaboration and you develop guidelines, then our colleagues know what are best steps to do and how can we develop best practices. What were possible solutions for interpretation and possible solutions for translations? Interpretation, educate managers and administrators, train administrative staff and hosts, grow your network and look from and learn from other colleagues. Virtual space gives a lot of opportunities to increase attendance. And technology is a new language, and it's a language that I'm willing to learn. Now, interpreters are more visible than ever. Have a good pair of headsets. So what are some possible solutions in translation? Invite the team that created the document so you can understand what they want to accomplish. Research glossaries. Allocate extra time to revise the documents. If you are managing a translation unit for a school district, or for a county office of education, learn how to work with a translation proposal. Learn how many words a translator can translate in a day and how many pages you can do in a day. That way, and in an hour, that way you can assess and you can let your managers and let the programs know that you need 2 weeks, that you need 4 weeks, that you need 2 days, whatever it might be. Because a lot of the mistakes that I personally did during the pandemic was telling our managers and our staff, yes, we can do a 70-page document in 3 weeks. But at the same time, I have to be in 4 IP meetings, and at the same time, I need to interpret for a couple of conferences, right? So learn how to assess and manage the projects that are given to you. Also, learning about dubbing, closed captioning, and transcripts. It was a very, very good opportunity for all of us to educate ourselves, that you can send some documents and some projects and some videos to vendors, and they will help you, and they already have softwares, and they can do the work even in a couple of days. So I share already some of my challenges, I share some of my opportunities, I share some of the work we did, but I also wanted to share a robust network that helped us survive during the pandemic with professional development and with trainings for everybody. So since 2014, the Orange County Department of Education in California, United States, created the Multilingual Consortium, which is a network to support high quality interpretation and translation in our school districts. Now with the pandemic, that all the meetings were virtual, we gave the opportunity to people from all over the world to join our sessions, right? So this was support for bilingual staff working in schools in our efforts to professionalize. So what happened? The first thing that happened is we identified the need to support interpreters and translators and community liaisons, because maybe my need is different than your need. And maybe it's different than the need that somebody has in New York, or the need that somebody has in Minnesota, or maybe the need that somebody may have in Spain. So identify the need of the population that you're going to be supporting. Then identify key players. Who are going to be the key players that are going to make your goals achieve? And then celebrate your success. So I'm going to share here some pictures about when we were identifying the needs. We were meeting as a whole, and we had people from all different school districts, and we were brainstorm. What do you need? People said, we wanted to develop glossaries. We want to have common terminology. We want to develop guidelines for school interpreters. We want to be recognized as Interpreters of the Year. We need professional development. So we took into consideration the needs of all the bilingual staff that were working in schools. And like I said at the very beginning, a lot of us are dual role employees. And we tried to accomplish, and we brought presenters, we brought trainers, we brought skills. So our administrators will differentiate a non-trained bilingual staff versus a trained bilingual staff, and versus an interpreter and a translator that have a degree or a master's degree in translation and in interpretation, right? So then after the needs were identified, we had to identify key players. Who are going to be my key players? Are there going to be school principals? Are they going to be the administrators? Are they going to be the coordinator of the site? We have also Office of Education, county offices, our leaders. Are they going to be assistant superintendents, associate superintendents, or superintendents of instructional services, of educational services, of communications? We have to identify in our districts who are going to be the key players. And these key players may vary from state to state. Do I have an English learner department? Is that department has a director? Does that department has a coordinator? Do I need to identify maybe a language service lead? Do I need to identify the directors of special education? So here in the United States, especially in California, we have general education, and sometimes the interpreters and translators belong to the general education department, or sometimes we have special education, and the interpreters and translators may belong to the special education department. Sometimes the interpreters and translators belong to the communications officer, right? So depending on which area we are and what are the systems that we have in place is where we need to assess. So here in Orange County, California, we have a directory of school districts with their names of the boards, with the name of the principals, of the assistant principals and their superintendents, the programs that we have. So I recommend you to go to the directories and see how is the structure of that school district or that county office of ed. And then it's when you're going to find your key players, right? So after finding your key players, we are going to celebrate our successes. So if I'm going to go back and we see our logo in our first meetings were in person. So now these are a new reality. These are our new meetings. We went online and we started supporting each other. So what happened this year, especially with my consortium network? We shared challenges and our successes. A lot of us did not know how to interpret for board meetings. So I identified 2 colleagues and they were willing to share the successes, the challenges, the good, the bad, the ugly. So when we share in a safe space of colleagues, we have a network, we trust each other, so we can learn from each other, right? So then we developed a county-wide directory of translators by language. Also, we invited guest speakers to share about remote simultaneous interpreting. I have a colleague that we identify him, and he started working with his team on the use of the interpreting feature in Zoom. And he was kind enough to share his knowledge with our group. Also, being innovative, right? Ways of support. I remember one interpreter saying that at a meeting, he started using the chat to talk to the parent in Spanish. So some people say, I never thought about that. So that was another great opportunity to network and share, right? So I invite you, if you would like to attend to our next meeting, it's going to be in May 11, and this is a link. So also, the Orange County Department of Education Multilingual Consortium developed some guidelines for a school interpreter. Why we developed guidelines? Because there was nothing in place, like Marjorie mentioning at the very beginning of her presentation. There's nothing written for educational interpreting. I know there are several initiatives, and I know there are several groups of people developing curriculums and books and trainings, but we still don't have a lot of things in place. So we don't have a code of ethics for educational interpreters. That is why we're working towards that. So we developed some guidelines. Guidelines, it's not a code of ethics, but at least it's some guidelines. It is okay for us to take breaks. We need to be professional. We need to say who we are. We need to render our introductions in both languages, right? In English and in our target language. So when we share this document, and I'm happy to share with all of you, we realize that it is okay for us to take breaks. We realize that it is okay for us to feel a little bit sensitive or emotional depending on the topic that is going to be shared. And maybe if you have a colleague, ask for support. It is okay to say, can I please have some information or material ahead of time so I can prepare myself? So that's why we developed these guidelines. So then our newest document was the remote interpreting in educational settings, best practice recommendations. This was developed for the Interpreters and Translators Work Group in Education, recently formed like the American Association for Interpreters and Translators in Education. This was just launched on Monday. So that's why we have not changed all the logos or anything. But again, this document I'm happy to share with all of you. And we developed this document after the pandemic. We took 30 days. So we launched this in April. A group of colleagues, we met, and we decided that this was super important for us. We decided to write a document to share about why it was so important the use of headsets, why it's so important to have a virtual partner, why it is so important to take a break, why it is so important to be resourceful and knowledgeable, what are the best platforms, remote platforms to use. So again, this document is available for everybody. Also, some of the lessons that we learned, right? So we talk a little bit about how to prepare for a virtual meeting. We learn a little bit about the challenges, the opportunities. We learn a little bit about networking. We learn a little bit about support to each other. So something that I learned, that it is okay not to be okay. So if you had problems with audio, if you have problems with connectivity, and if you feel frustrated, and you add to this that you have your family at home and you have a little one that you need to teach them, your letters, and you need to focus, and then you're thinking about, your own personal stuff, it is okay not to be okay. Self-care is super important. You have to set that boundaries. You have to take care of yourself. Any practice that you may use is going to be now part of your priority. Take a walk, go to the beach, take a long shower, have a cup of coffee, smell a flower, or just lock yourself in your bedroom, at least for 10 minutes. But you need to take care of yourself. Advocate for yourself and for your team. Ask, may we have please headsets because the audio will be better? Can I have a hotspot because my connectivity at home is not working? Can I have a virtual partner because I see that we have a 3-hour meeting and we need support? What happens if the connectivity goes bad? What happens if you have a personal emergency? You need to provide the service. Work in pairs. Always have that partner that you can text each other, that you can do dry runs with each other. Assess yourself after the meeting if you have the chance, and if you have a virtual partner, talk to each other. What went well? What went wrong? Do you feel that you rendered the message properly? That you got stuck with a word that you did not remember? How did your partner handle it? So the more we learn from each other, the more support we have from our colleagues, the better our rendition is going to be. We have to have support from our peers. Find one person to lean on, a person to vent, a person that you can tell them, you know what, I really do not know how to use technology. Can you please help me? You know what, I don't feel secure because there's a lot of legal terminology. Do you have a legal glossary that you can share? You know what, I'm having this personal healthcare issue, and I've been scheduled to be on an IP on Friday for 3 hours. Is it okay if I have you as a backup? Because all these things are going to take stress away from you. Network, network, and network. That's one of the most important lessons that I learned. If we did not have a strong network, then our job haven't been successful during this year. Technology now is my friend, and technology now is my new language. I was so scared of technology, and I realized that technology is nice. The minute you start learning how to use Zoom and how to prepare a Zoom meeting and how to work on a webinar, the more you use it, the more comfortable you're going to feel. And also seek support from professional organizations. Any organization that this might be, from the American Translator Association, for the American Association of Interpreters and Translators in Education, LinkedIn, Facebook. There's a lot of free webinars out there. If you go to social media, there's a lot of companies that are helping us and that are supporting our work. Cross-Cultural Communications, an amazing company. They have a series of webinars and they are free. Feel free to share them with your staff. If your district do not have money to pay, then you can share free resources. And the minute your administrators see the change, see that you're working as a professional, they're going to start supporting you. Like I mentioned before, I recently launched American Association of Interpreters and Translators in Education. If you would like to join us, we have a website here. Learn more. They have resources. We have a listserv. So please feel free to log in and to look a little bit about what the organization is about. And also, like Marjorie shared, I invite you to attend our Interpreters and Translators Conference. This year's theme is On the Road to Professionalization. It's going to be a month long. It's going to be, it's not going to be that expensive, but you know, at least it's a way for you to professionalize and to learn more skill development. So at this point, I think we can open it. I see we have a lot of questions, and I see the chat. I have not read anything, but if you have any questions and answers, I'm more than happy to share. If you want, some of my information is here. This is my email. This is my phone number. Also, you have the website of the Orange County Department of Education if you'd like to learn a little bit more about us. I'm always willing to help you to share the resources that we have. If the PowerPoint, like Marjorie share, everything is going to be shared with you.
All right. Well, and Natalia, as always with these webinars, there is no shortage of questions, but I just want to start by saying there's been so many appreciative comments, thanking you for the valuable information and saying things like, I can't wait to share this presentation with my district staff. So rest assured, your information will be shared widely. But not to waste time, let's dive right into the questions because this is valuable time they have with you. The first question that came to us of substance was, could you provide more information about the newly formed association? This person says, I wrote my PhD thesis about interpreting in schools in Spain. Well, about the lack of interpreting services, she adds, and I'm really interested in this topic. And I suspect across the country and in other countries, people want to know more about this new association.
Yes, well, thank you. And I'm more than happy to share. Everything started with a conversation in a hallway at a conference. And we realized—
Natalia, if you could just stop sharing, then they could see you nice and big.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay,
No,
thank you. So everything started, you know, we were talking to each other. We were networking, again, network. And we realized that there were a lot of us working in schools, but we did not have any support. We did not have guidelines or resources. So we started meeting informally via email. And then we started meeting for 2 years, almost twice a month. And we created this organization with people in the field. We open it up to everybody. We open it up for people to join us from all over the United States. And I can, you know, assure you that we just started. We have a name. We had a board now, and we were a board elected for 1 year. I highly encourage you to be part of our listserv. Go to our website, and you're going to see who's part of the board and what are the things that we're doing. But our goal is to professionalize interpreters working in schools here in the United States. So we want to develop a code of ethics. We want to be recognized and provide, you know, professional development opportunities specialized for educational interpreters.
Thank you so much. That was lovely, Natalia. Excellent question here. Are there any translated resources for families to know how to turn interpretation on and troubleshoot interpretation in Zoom?
Yes, I'm more than happy to share some documents that I had, and we have created also like a little script on how to turn in the interpreting feature in Zoom, and we have this little script in Vietnamese, in Korean, and Mandarin, I believe, and I highly encourage interpreters to share the script with the parents before the meeting. When you're inviting them, when you have a flyer, and you're reminding them, please log in, it's Friday, send them the little script on how to log in, and also share this with the coordinator of your meeting. That will make your day easier. Or you have to tell the coordinator, before we start the session, please allocate at least 5 minutes to the interpreter so you can explain on how this is going to work.
Yes, and Natalia, if you were able to send us anything you wanted to send us to share before 24 hours after this webinar ends, that's when we send out the recording link, the PowerPoint, the link to certificates and so forth, and your handouts. And so we can also put additional handouts, because that sounds fabulous. Next question, if the assignment will last more than 1 hour, are we entitled to request a partner? That's a good question.
Okay, so I think I share today, of course, yes, you're entitled. So I will say this. I highly recommend everybody, to work in pairs. However, our reality is different. We do not have something budget, right? So you have to assess. If it is a parent-teacher meeting that I know there's going to be easy, I don't need a partner. If it is a back-to-school night, I don't need a partner. If it is something, I have a daughter in 7th grade. So if it is something about a transition to high school, I don't need a partner because I already have a daughter and I kind of know what they're going to talk about. If they're going to be inviting assembly members, if they're going to be inviting lawyers, if this is a conference where you have more people, then you have a valid reason, right? Because what happens if I get sick? What happens if my laptop's, the battery dies? What happens if the connectivity goes bad? They need support. So then you have a valid point, right? But let's say we have a parent-teacher conference. Parents are very important, but it's not going to be so stressful for some of the staff to find you a replacement that if you have a larger event.
Thank you. The more information to obtain in advance, this person asks, the better for the interpreter to prepare. For example, if it's on IEP, what is its time length? Is it the first assessment, the annual, the triennial, et cetera, anything related to medical, legal, and so on. Yet in reality, it's not so simple for interpreters to obtain this information. And this has been a repeated question. How far can we interpreters have the right to ask for this meeting information in advance? And I have to say in chat, I also several references to how hard it is to get information about IEPs.
Yes. So, okay. So first of all, it is super hard. However, it is feasible. So I just want to, for us to take a minute and think about all the teachers and psychologists and principals that need to do the IEPs for all their students, right? So in reality, they cannot have the documents ready ahead of time. But if at least we have a template and we kind of know how the IEP flows, you have a goal and they're talking about auditive issues, at least you have an idea. Have a good connection, have a good relationship with those coordinators, with the principals, because if you have at least one IEP that they share with you, you kind of have an idea on how the document is going to flow. We can ask, but also in reality, we have to be mindful that not all of our teachers and our psychologists have everything, ahead of time, because they have also multiple students that they have to service.
Thank you. If a presentation is confusing, should we be true to the original intent and maintain that confusing atmosphere established by the speaker? Or should we be trying to reduce that atmosphere of confusion, but change the intent of the speaker?
Okay, so is this a speaker that you're speaking at a conference, or this is like a smaller meeting? Because if it is at a conference, then we have a problem because the speaker is confusing and you're doing simultaneous interpretation and you have to interpret fully, accurately to your knowledge, right? If it is a psychologist that is being a little bit confusing, you can always say, as the interpreter, I request clarification on ABC. Always you have to have this community autonomy. It's your words. It's not the parent that is not understanding. It's not the teacher. Natalia has the interpreter and requesting, please, can you explain term ABC? However, if it is a speaker that is speaking so fast, or they're talking about some terminology that you're not aware of, right? That's when you need your partner. And you can text your partner, please take over, You know, I cannot follow the person. It is super important for me to have that partner and to have that, you know, that text messaging going on. And we even have a code between us. We will just put go and we know what it means, right? Because sometimes it is too hard for us, but when it is simultaneous, we cannot stop. So you interpret truly, faithfully to the message that you're listening. And like we said in the presentation, these are things you cannot control.
That's real. That's called real life. Yeah. Do you have any suggestions, Natalia, for glossaries for the educational interpreter? And I should mention that we have some on our website. If you go to resources and resources, it can, there's a certain section for resources in education. We have some, but you may have some more up-to-date ones that we don't even know about.
Yes, so I share with you the Orange County Department of Education webpage. We have multilingual glossaries that we developed with 18 school districts, and they are in Mandarin, Vietnamese, Farsi, Spanish, and Korean. They're not updated because we developed this, I think it was 5 years ago, and we're trying to look for a revision, but we have a lot of glossaries there. And also do research. Also, California Department of Education has a glossary. Los Angeles Unified School District have glossaries. So what we did is we tried to combine everything for consistency. But if you want more information about glossaries, you know, I'm more than happy. Just email me and I can send you the glossaries that I have, Andy.
And if any of you have questions, you can just shoot your questions for Natalia, for us, to info@cultureandlanguage.net. We'll answer what we can, and of course, specialized questions from Natalia. She will answer. I'm sure Andrew is probably writing that email down in chat right now, info@cultureandlanguage.net. Natalia, you mentioned dry runs. Somebody is asking what you mean by dry runs.
Okay, sure. So what I mean with dry runs is we have a virtual meeting and we have they request 2 interpreters for a family community network meeting, and you have 100 parents, right? So they are requesting a Spanish interpreter and they're requesting a Vietnamese interpreter. Okay, so we schedule 1 hour a week before with the entire team, with the host, with the manager in charge, and we test it out. So we practice like it was like the real day. Okay, let's connect to each other. So how it's going to work? My name is Natalia Barca. I'm going to be your interpreter, blah, blah, blah. Then our Vietnamese interpreter introduce herself in Vietnamese, and then the teachers introduce themselves so we can flow easily, right? Let's say you have an IP meeting or a meeting that is the principal and you cannot do a dry run. Do a dry run with your internal team. Test it out before, test the audio, manage the mute button, right? Because when you're switching from language to language, it may be scary. But the more you test it out, the better it is. If you have a team of interpreters and translators or bilingual staff, schedule a day of the week, at least an hour, right? You know what? We found these great resources about the use of Zoom. We have a script, let's test it out. You try to troubleshoot it before the real meeting.
Excellent. Someone is asking where I can get school interpreter certification, and at the same time, someone else is saying Arkansas has developed some kind of interpreting certification for school interpreters. I don't know if that's sign language or not. Are you in touch with them?
No, but I would love to. I would love to. I know there are some efforts. There's some national efforts with trainings and certifications for educational interpreting. And I think if we go online, a lot of the websites are there. But yes, if you have information and you guys can share with me, that would be great to connect.
I forgot to mention when I was meeting with you privately, Natalia, that every single webinar presenter we've ever had has been asked what headset you use and or microphone, and I think you've had at least 3 questions about your headset so far.
Okay, so this is, and I'm not related to the company, but I just have this ones. Which ones are they? I don't know if you can see it. It's KOSS, and I can share with you guys. It's KOSS, okay. KOSS, and I think they were $50. Not too expensive.
Thank you. It's sort of funny how that is a recurrent question. Someone else also likes your background for Zoom and wants to know how you have your background set up. For a lot of educational interpreters, I can imagine this is a real issue.
Yes, well, I just put it as a virtual feature that we have in Zoom. We have the institutional license, but something that I requested is to buy a green screen. I think they have between $50 and $150. We already requested here as a team, but Amazon didn't deliver them on time. But, you know, invest on a green screen. That will make your life easier. I also know that people, some put like a tablecloth, you know, like maybe an orange one or just a plain color, but this is just a virtual background from Zoom.
I think a lot of people who are listening might not know what a green screen is. Natalia, did you want to just briefly explain? Because it's a very important thing to know about.
Yes, so a green screen is like a little panel that you can purchase, and you can carry it with you, and you put it behind yourself wherever you are. So the background will be green, and therefore your image will look cleaner.
That's good to know. By the way, someone is answering that the Arkansas certification, which I need to investigate, thank you very much to the participants for informing us, is for spoken as well as sign languages. So that can be very helpful. An interpreter is wanting to know if they can work all over the world, inside and outside the US, which is an interesting question we haven't had before.
Yeah, so I will say that depends on where do you want to work. If you're a freelancer and you can work with a company and you have, you know, the proper documentation to bill here in the States, I don't think there will be a problem. If you want to work for a school district, you need to live in the United States. Like I could not hire somebody that lives overseas because you need to be living here.
Very helpful, very helpful. Someone is asking if, I think this means you personally, if you have ever requested breaks for when interpreting?
Yes, of course. And I'm going to tell you, I had a 3-hour meeting, and then I had to interpret again in the afternoon, and I didn't have lunch. And I was so extremely tired. And all these acronyms were like, you know, like IP and the STARS and the test. And I asked for a break. And I told them, you know, please, Natalia, can I have a break? I'm extremely tired. I have Zoom fatigue, and I've been interpreting 3 hours, and everybody was so nice and understandable. 5 minutes, took water, washed my face, and then I continued. I think the beauty of this, you have to be human too, right?
Oh, yeah. This is a long question, so it might be the last one. Is it appropriate for an interpreter to propose the family member who's more interested in students' educational progress than the parent or legal guardian to be included in PTC? Does that affect confidentiality? This person usually works with children who are immigrants and have problems with English, which isn't even spoken at home, and maybe learning disabilities. And so they're speaking sometimes like an older sibling or an aunt who's more involved. Have you heard? And I don't know. I mean, so the question is whether the interpreter can be suggesting that they be included in the parent-teacher conference. It sounds like a role boundary issue question.
Yeah. So if I recall correctly, the interpreter do not add, do not omit, do not request. So if you're the interpreter, you go, you render your message, and you leave. However, if you have the hat of a community liaison, of a parent advocate, you leave that meeting, and then when you are in your office with your supervisor in your other role, you could suggest, but I will not suggest that you are the interpreter, because that will be a conflict of interest.
Thank you. How do you interpret acronyms, English or Spanish in particular?
Okay, so that's a very, very good question. In education, we have an acronym. That's the world of acronyms, right? So that's the world of acronyms. So in our reality, when we are interpreting and we go so fast, usually we use the same acronym in English. Sometimes the parents are so used to IP. Si yo les digo el E y el P, they may not understand, right? But when we translate, we put the acronyms, and then we put, because this is por sus siglas en inglés, right? Because these are the acronym in English. But it is very hard to interpret. If you're rendering a simultaneous message, I would recommend just use the acronym, because for time, Spanish is longer. We use more words than in English. So in research, also, it is super hard to go to a meeting when they're throwing out so many acronyms and we don't even know what they mean.
Wow, we could continue, but we did get through most of the questions. And again, to anyone who had a burning question for Natalia, for us, please don't hesitate to shoot an email to info@cultureandlanguage.net. But I just want to say thank you again. The comments have been pouring in on chat about how helpful the information was, how valuable. Many grateful attendees. Thank you for doing this. One even wants you to do one for translation and education. So it's like, apparently there is a hunger for education and translation. And I guess that's because so many interpreters in education are also translating, as you know very well. You've been a fountain of extremely precious information. Thank you for sharing your time, your expertise, and what an amazing experience to be able to welcome you this week of all weeks when the announcement just came out. And without Natalia Barca, I don't know if this association would even exist. It was your conference that you founded that kind of launched it all. Thank you so much for coming and sharing everything you shared today, Natalia.
Well, it's my pleasure. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be here today. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day and rest of your week. Take care and rest.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.